Okay, this is week 16, lesson 3, notes on tree diagrams and probability. So you have two spinners below, and one has yellow and blue, and the other one has yellow, blue, and red. It says to assume that each of the outcomes on the first spinner are equally likely. So half the time you'd get yellow, half the time you'd get blue. Those portions of that circle are equal. And then we have this circle, which half of it's yellow, 1/4 is blue, and 1/4 is red. And they want you to fill in a tree diagram to explore this situation. So the one with two options has to be this circle because there's only two colors, and half the time you get blue, half the time you get yellow. So I'm just going to label this Y for yellow and B for blue. So I know that half the time it's going to land on yellow and half the time it's going to land on blue. So those would be half and half. I'm going to go ahead and use fractions for all of these since on the homework it will ask for your answer as a fraction. You could use decimals, but if they're asking for fractions, we want to keep it as fractions. And then we have this spinner here, and here I have three options. I can land on yellow, I can land on blue, and I can land on red. So I know that half the time this one's going to land on yellow because that takes up half of the circle. So I'm going to make this half. 1/4 of the time it would land on blue, and 1/4 of the time it would land on red. So now if I want to extend this and say, what is the probability that I would land on yellow on the first spinner and land on yellow on the second spinner? I would do 1/2 times 1/2, and I extend it all the way down to the end of here, and that would be the probability of getting 2 yellows. So just a reminder on multiplying fractions. When I multiply fractions, I want to multiply straight across. So top times top and bottom times bottom. So for my top number, 1 times 1 is 1, and for my bottom number, 2 times 2 is 4. So this would be 1/4. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Same thing here. If I want to know what's the probability it lands on yellow on the first spinner and blue on the second spinner, so I get a yellow and a blue, then I'm going to multiply those fractions. So 1/2 times 1/4. And then I'm going to multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 4 is 8. So the probability of that outcome would be 1/8. I'm going to do the same thing here. 1/2 times 1/4. I already know that's 1/8. Those are the same numbers. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. I know half of this spinner is yellow. I know 1/4 of it is blue, and I know 1/4 of it is red. So again, I'm going to do half times half, which is 1/4. Half times 1/4, which is 1/8. And half times 1/4, which is 1/8. Okay, now that I have my tree diagram filled in, I'm able to answer the questions that they want to know the probability of. So find the probability of the following as a fraction. So this is good that we left them as fractions, not as decimals, because that's how we're going to answer the question. What's the probability that both spinners land on a yellow? So that would be this track right here, yellow, yellow. The probability of that is 1/4. What's the probability both spinners land on a blue? Okay, so that would be blue and blue. So the probability of that would be 1/8. And then what is the probability that we get a red and a blue? Okay, I know on the first spinner I can't get a red, so it's going to have to be the blue on the first spinner and a red on the second spinner. So that path would also be 1/8. Okay, now it says you are playing a game where you flip a coin and draw a card from a bin. There are 2 aces, 6 kings, and 4 jacks. So it looks like in total there's 12 cards to choose from. It's not a whole deck of cards with 52. It's just a coin, and then it's a bin with 12 cards in it. So we need to fill in the tree diagram to represent this situation. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Okay, I know that when I flip a coin, there's 2 options. I can get heads or I can get tails. And I know it's equally likely to get either outcome. So that would be half the time I'm going to get heads and half the time I'm going to get tails. And then it looks like there's 3 options for the cards. There's aces, kings, and jacks. So I can get an ace, I can get a king, or I can get a jack. I can get an ace, I can get a king, king, or I can get a jack. Okay. So I can either get heads on the coin and get either of these cards, or I can get a tails on the coin and get either one of these cards. So I need to explore every situation that could happen in this scenario. Okay, so I know it's equally likely for the heads and the tails, but it's not equally likely for the cards. It looks like there's 2 aces out of a total of, let's see, 6 and 4 is 10, plus 2, that's 12. So there's a total of 12 cards, and 2 of them are aces. So 2 out of the 12 are aces. You can write this as 2 out of 12, but it might be easier if you reduce your fractions so you're dealing with smaller numbers so that at the end you don't have to reduce it. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce this to 1/6. Okay, and then the kings, it looks like I have 6 kings out of 12. So you could write that as 6 out of 12, but let's go ahead and reduce our fractions. So let's make this 1/2. 1/2 of the cards are kings. And then last we have jacks, and there's 4 jacks out of 12 cards. And let's go ahead and reduce that fraction to 1/3. Okay. Now we have same thing down here. I know there's 2 out of 12 aces, so I'm just going to write 1/6. I know that there are 6 out of 12 kings, so I'm just going to write 1/2. And I know there are 4 out of 12 jacks, so I'm just going to write 1/3. Okay, so now if I want to know what the outcome of all of these are, I'm just going to go ahead and follow this path so I can get what this outcome would be. 1/2 times 1/6, that would give me 1/12. 1/2 times 1/2, that gives me 1/4. And then 1/2 times 1/3, that gives me 1/6. And then these are going to be the same because I'm dealing with the same numbers. So it's going to be 1/12, 1/4, and 1/6. Okay, so find the probability for each of the following as a fraction. What's the probability I get a heads and an ace? So heads and ace, that would be 1/12. What's the probability I get a tails and a jack? The jack is down here, so that would be 1/6. What's the probability I get a tails and a king? So tails and king, that would be 1/4. And what's the probability I get a heads and a king? So that would be 1/4. Okay, so now it says that we're at Apple, the store, and we're talking about AirPods versus AirPods Pro. Okay, so it looks like the manager tells you that 1/4 of the customers choose AirPods Pro, while the remaining 3/4 choose just normal AirPods. From there, he said the probability is the same of them choosing whether they get their case engraved or not. So it looks like we have equal probability for engraving versus not engraving, but not equal probability for the AirPods Pro versus the AirPods. Okay, so this is going to be AirPods Pro, and this one's just going to be the normal AirPods. And it looks like he said 1/4 choose AirPods Pro, so this one's going to be 1/4. And 3/4 choose the normal AirPods. Okay. And then from there, he said it's equally likely that they get it engraved or not engraved. So I'm just going to put E for engraved and not engraved. E for engraved and not engraved. So that one's equally likely. So half the people get it engraved and half the people don't get it engraved, whether they get AirPods Pro or just AirPods. Okay, so now if I want to know the final outcomes, I'm going to do 1/4 times 1/2, which is 1/8. 1/4 times 1/2, which is 1/8. 3/4 times 1/2, which is 3/8. And 3/4 times 1/2, which is 3/8. Okay, now I can answer all of the questions that they asked. So find the probability of the following as a fraction, that they got the AirPods And they got the engraving, so that would be 3/8. And this one, the AirPods Pro, and no engraving, that would be 1/8.